The air in the spire's apex throne room was so processed and thin it felt like drinking ice water. After 6 months in the humid, reeking underbelly of Xerxes, my lungs rebelled against the sterile chill. Every breath was a reminder that I didn't belong here, that I was filth dragged into a palace of light. My knees ached against the cold, polished obsidian floor. The manacles on my wrists weren't the cheap, rusty kind you'd find in a slum lockup. These were sleek, ceramosteel bands that hummed with a contained energy field, keyed to nullify the neural lace in my spine. Without that lace, I was just another animal. Helpless, which I supposed was the whole point. Flanking me were 2 of the Imperial Guard. They weren't men, not really. They were Praetorians, gene-forged and cybernetically enhanced, their faces hidden behind featureless silver masks. They stood as still as statues, each one a one-person army, their presence a weight that pressed down on the air. They hadn't spoken a word since they'd snatched me from my bolt hole in the pipeline district. They didn't need to. Their silence was louder than any threat. At the far end of the room, on a dais of crystalline steps, sat the Empress Selene Voss. She was the absolute ruler of the Terran sphere, and she was, as the holos always showed, breathtakingly beautiful. Her black hair was a waterfall of ink against the white fur of her throne. Her gown was spun from metallic threads that shimmered with every micro-movement. Her eyes, a pale, startling violet, were fixed on me with the clinical curiosity of a child about to dissect a fly. To her right, standing in the shadow of the throne, was a man I recognized immediately. Aris Thorne, my former mentor, the man who taught me the art of digital subversion, who shared my drinks and my dreams of a freer galaxy. He was also the man who had sold our entire cell to the Imperium to save his own skin 6 months prior. He wore the gray uniform of an Imperial Information Advisor now, a high-ranking collaborator. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The silence stretched. It was a tactic. Make the prisoner wait, let their fear curdle and rise in their throat until they blurt out a confession or a plea. I'd used it myself, back when I had a lace and a purpose. I focused on my breathing, slow and even, and looked at the floor. Kael Vance. Her voice was a crystalline chime, perfectly modulated, utterly devoid of warmth. The ghost of Xerxes. The data phantom who embarrassed my Minister of Intelligence and cost me 3 battleship manifests. You've been a persistent little splinter. I said nothing. I kept my eyes down. Do you know why you're here? She asked. Why? I didn't simply have your neural lace fried remotely the moment my guards found you. I risked a glance up. Aris shifted on his feet. To make an example of me, your radiance? I said, my voice raspy from disuse and the thin air. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. Examples are for the masses. They are broad, blunt strokes. No, you are here for a more refined purpose. You see, your former colleague, Advisor Thorne, has been most helpful. But he lacks your particular finesse. There is a final, delicate operation that needs performing. A rival house on Proxima has a data fortress I need unlocked. It's a ghost walk even my best can't manage. She leaned forward slightly, the violet eyes glittering. You will do this for me. You will unlock their core, and in return, I will grant you a clean death. A flash of white light. No pain, no fear. Just nothing. A far kinder fate than the one awaiting you in the Inquisition's dungeons. This was the moment, the pivot point. I could feel Aris's gaze on me now, a mixture of pity and relief that he wasn't in my place. The guards tensed, ready for the outburst, the begging, the futile struggle for life. Look at me when I'm offering you mercy, insect, she commanded. I lifted my head. I met her gaze fully for the first time, and I saw it. Not just cruelty, but a deep-seated, pathological need. She needed the fear. She fed on the desperate pleas, the broken sobs of powerful men reduced to whimpering children before her. It was the only proof of her power that truly satisfied her. She expected me to crumble. She needed me to crumble. And in that moment, a profound, ridiculous absurdity of it all washed over me. The opulent room, the silent killing machines, the treacherous rat in his gray suit, and this porcelain doll of a tyrant offering me a choice between a bullet and a scalpel. It was all so theatrical, so desperately fragile. A chuckle escaped my lips. It was a dry, rusty sound, utterly alien in that pristine space. The Empress's eyes widened a fraction. I saw a ripple of confusion cross her face. The chuckle grew. I thought of Aris, hiding in the shadows, probably hoping I'd just agree so he could feel better about his own cowardice. The chuckle became a laugh. A full-throated, genuine laugh that echoed off the obsidian walls. I laughed at her absurd throne, her preening vanity, her pathetic need to see me grovel. I laughed at Aris, at his stained uniform and his stained soul. I laughed at myself for ever thinking we could fight this circus with logic and justice. It was all just a grand, horrifying joke. The change in the room was immediate and electric. The Empress's face, a moment ago a mask of serene control, contorted. The pale skin flushed with a mottled, ugly red. Her perfect composure shattered, revealing the furious, insecure tyrant beneath. Her eyes went wide, not with confusion now, but with a kind of primal shock. No one laughed at a god. Aris Thorne looked at me as if I'd just sprouted a second head. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. He was probably recalculating every variable, trying to understand a data point that simply didn't exist in his world. But it was the guards who reacted most tellingly. For the first time, they moved. The one on my right took a half step back, his silver mask tilting as if to look at his partner. The one on my left shifted his weight, the faintest whisper of servos accompanying the movement. They were the ultimate instruments of control, and here was a variable they couldn't process. A prisoner, helpless and unarmed, laughing in the face of their empress. It was a systemic anomaly. Their programming, designed to handle any physical threat, had no protocol for the complete and utter breakdown of psychological expectation. For just a split second, the illusion of their invincible power flickered, and I saw them for what they were. Confused men in fancy suits. My laughter subsided into a wide, genuine grin. "Oh, your radiance," I said, my voice clear and strong. "You think this is a negotiation? You think you're offering me a choice?" I shook my head, still smiling. "You don't get it. You never did. It's not about the job. It's not about the pain. It's about this." I gestured with my manacled hands at the space between us. This little performance. The throne, the guards, the gracious offer. You need me to beg. You need it like you need air. And that is the most pathetic thing I have ever seen. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the plush carpet. The Empress's face was a terrifying mask of pure, unadulterated rage. But beneath the rage, for the first time, I saw a flicker of something else. Doubt. And beneath the doubt, a tiny seed of fear. She looked at her unmoving guards, then back at me. The balance of power, for one fleeting, crystalline moment, had shifted. Aris Thorne finally found his voice, a nervous squeak. "Your radiance, he's clearly unstable. Let me take him to the dungeons. I'll have the information out of him in a day." The Empress ignored him. She rose from her throne, a slow, deliberate movement that was meant to be intimidating. She walked down the crystalline steps, her heels clicking a sharp staccato on the obsidian. She stopped 3 feet away from me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something cold and floral. "You think you're brave," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "You think this is defiance. It is the thrashing of a dying insect. I have crushed rebellions. I have erased bloodlines. I have made stars go dark. And you, a gutter rat with a dead lace, dare to laugh at me?" I looked up at her, my grin softening into something like pity. "Exactly," I said softly. "You've done all that. And you're still here, trying to get a reaction out of me. You're the most powerful person in the universe, and you're empty. Completely, utterly empty. Your guards didn't panic because they thought I was a threat. They panicked because you did." Her hand twitched, as if she wanted to strike me. But she wouldn't. That would be admitting I could affect her. She held my gaze for a long, searing moment. Then, a terrifying calm settled over her features. The rage was gone, replaced by something far worse. Cold, clinical calculation. "You're right," she said, her voice flat. "This was a performance. And you've spoiled it. Very well. New plan." She turned her back on me and walked towards a side door. Over her shoulder, she issued her final order, her voice echoing in the cavernous room. "Advisor Thorne, take him to the mirrors." My blood ran cold. The mirrors. It wasn't a torture chamber in the traditional sense. It was a psychological hell. A room where your own mind was turned against you, where your deepest fears, shames, and regrets were projected back at you on an infinite loop until your sanity simply dissolved. It was a fate far worse than death. A clean death was no longer on the table. Aris stepped forward, a flicker of genuine sorrow in his eyes before the cowardice reasserted itself. "You shouldn't have done that, Kael," he murmured, grabbing my arm. But as he pulled me to my feet, I was still smiling. The Empress had missed the point entirely. She thought she was punishing me, but she had confirmed everything I had ever believed about her and her kind. They were not strong. They were fragile constructs of glass and ego, propped up by fear and violence. I had shattered her performance, and in doing so, I had proven, at least to myself, that the human spirit, the will to defy, was the one thing her armies and her mirrors could never truly conquer. As the guards closed in, I felt a strange sense of peace. The laughter was gone, but the truth it had revealed remained. I had not begged. I had not broken. And in a universe of terrified subjects and petrified collaborators, that was a victory no one could take from me. As they marched me toward the door, toward the waiting horror of the mirrors, I held my head high. The ending, it seemed, was not a clean death, but a descent into madness. Yet even that felt preferable to a single moment on my knees.